knows what Bannock is. Diane.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Diane and me are friends already. We start talking
Oh,
about Bannock and raspberry jam.
there you go. That's great. Well, we're so thankful for everyone who has taken the time today. Lots of people from Calgary. I know that there's one from Edmonton on. And so, Vince, we're just so happy you're here. I want to get started right away because we like to honor everyone's time. But Vince and I had a really great coffee a while ago. I met Vince at an event that Tanya from Brown Bagging It for Calgary's Kids was doing on people-centered leadership. And, you know, we just had so much fun. And I loved everything that Vince stood for. He's just real. So if you're here kind of wondering what we're like and is this going to be super stingy or stuffy, it is absolutely not. Vince holds nothing back. And the things that he has shared with me personally about what he's learned from his time in the Army, it has really impacted me. It's given, I have to tell you a quick story. I actually met up with a man who was in the military who used to interrogate terrorists. That was his job. Oh, wow. And I said, you'd have to be pretty strategic to have a job like that. And he's like, oh yeah. And then I said to him, I'm like, I don't think I would ever last in a terrorist war. And he said, no, you wouldn't. I could just tell. So here we are in a crisis. I hope I do better right now. But Vince, I want to definitely open the floor to you to share what's on your heart. What are some of the strategies you've learned over the years with your experience? And just want to tell everyone at any time, please feel free to write down any questions you have for Vince or us at any moment. You're not being rude. Just put it in the chat box with a question and answer, and we will get to it. So welcome, Vince.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you, Abe. It's interesting times, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you today. So thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, nice to meet you here, Vince. And, you know, I'm just interested to hear a little bit, and I'm sure everyone is, a little bit of your story. Like, you know, tell us about your, you know, kind of your story. What's your story?
The fast story is I grew up and largely in the beginning with my mother, and we bounced around a lot in the very small town of Williams Lake. So never really left town but once. And by the time I was in grade 6, I was in my 8th different school. And most, like my kids will go to kindergarten and elementary, middle school, high school. They're going to go to 3 schools. That's it. I went to 8 and I was only in grade 6. So 10 schools by the time I graduated high school. So growing up as a kid, it was just, like I said, it was just my mom. And I got, and because we moved around a lot, I used humor became my way of navigating all these new relationships. So I was the class clown. That's how I showed up. That's how I behaved. And it was just a really safe way to not get hurt, a really safe way to not get beat up. Although having said that, my mouth wrote checks. My body had to cash more than a few times. And so when I was in grade 6, a classmate had done a presentation on D-Day, June 6, 1944, and paratroopers. And I was like, that's me. If I'm a paratrooper, no one is ever going to pick on me again. I'll always be safe. And that's why I wanted to join the military. The other part was that to see someone else be picked on, it sucks to be picked on, but for me, it sucked even more to see someone else get picked on and having no capacity to do anything about it. So there was 2 motivators for me to join the military. 1, I would be safe if I was a paratrooper, and 2, so other people would be safe if I was a paratrooper. So school was over. I joined the military. 7 years, a deployment in Somalia, where we got to do exactly that, keep ourselves safe, keep others safe. And the military was very, very similar to COVID-19 in the fact that a tremendous amount of uncertainty, information changed daily, sometimes multiple times a day. And therefore, self-doubt in the training we had. What the mission we trained for wasn't exactly the mission we were on. There was a shortage of supplies. There was a shortage of food. There was a shortage of many things. We were not in control of pretty much everything. So other than ourselves, other than our own unit, there was 14 different tribes who wanted to be in charge. There was a bit of a vacuum of leadership. So all these different tribes were saying, hey, we're in charge. And they had a unique way of dealing with each other, usually with guns and hand grenades and rockets and bombs and stuff. So we were Somalia was never a peacekeeping mission. It was set up in the beginning, but due to some change of events between Pakistani peacekeepers and local insurgents, it flipped to what's called Chapter 7, or in English, peacemaking. So peacekeeping, I can't do anything unless I take effective fire, meaning me or my buddy gets shot. Peacemaking is if two sides are fighting, and we can do everything we need to do to stop it. And we can also protect resources and assets, not just humans. So getting out of the military, I went into sales, really enjoyed it for the most part. There was a ton of lessons, from photocopiers to law enforcement equipment sales to gym memberships and mascots. If you think of all the NFL mascots, all the NHL mascots in North America, the vast majority are made right here in Calgary. So really cool job. If business was a relationship, we had an ugly divorce. I ended up at Edge School for Athletes, coaching character development and rugby and different things, but under the guise of character development, really. And then 4 years later, that ended, and I put my resume in space, and I did a bit of an asset inventory check, and I had a really strong background in sales and business, and I had a really strong background in coaching athletics. What would that look like if I made a job out of it? Turned out, unknowingly, it was coaching professionals. So I've been coaching business owners ever since, in my own practice since 2012. So that's the fast story. Largest client has 723 employees. Smallest client probably has 10. They're all the common ground between all my clients is every single one's a human being. Every single one has a brain. Every single one deals with self-doubt and opportunity. And we're all doing the best we can to be the best version of ourselves, so that our business is able to create a space for our teams to live a life that's important to them, meaningful to them, as well as the community. What's the impact on the community that, this business exists? So that's the fast story.
That's a wealth of experience and knowledge. And so let's go to your embrace the suck mentality. What your philosophies are around that, and what you learned from the Army, because I think everyone here today is just what are we on, week 4 of this quarantine? And now I think people are starting to think I need some strategies. This isn't just reaction now. You and I chatted about that this morning, about where we go, how we start in crisis to where we would be 4 weeks later. Can you speak to that, Vince?
Sure. Embrace the suck is a term I learned in the military. It's the reality that between here and progress, there's going to be suck. So, one of the common analogies is we've all decided, everyone in this call has decided, we're going to go climb Mount Everest. And that means we have to get physically fit. We understand that, there's altitude and oxygen and all these things. That means we're going to have to carry a lot of our equipment. So we're going to have to strengthen up our backs and our posterior chain. That means we're going to have to put up with different risks, like frostbite, like heavy winds and whiteouts, and losing our gear if we don't properly secure our tents to the ground. You can get some pretty fast winds. And as well, those final 300 meters, including Hillary's step, there is well-documented experiences where, anything from just a misstep or a big wind comes along and that person's gone. Like they fall 1,000,000 miles down to their death. So there's a lot of suck between here and Everest, not to mention we still got to get back to base camp. And the return from the summit back to base camp is just as risky as the summit itself. Now, having said that, how do we all feel that we've summited Everest? We're on the front page of magazines, we're getting speaking engagements, we're writing books, we're heroes to our community, all these different things. But that that achievement was not achieved because of an absence of suck. In fact, this suck was so big that that's why people don't climb Everest. It's because there's so much suck involved. Same with the deployment. Same with, how about this? How about just marriage? I mean, marriage. I've been married for 14 years, and yes, I love my wife dearly, but that poor woman has suffered a lot of suck.
My husband's sitting right here and he's laughing at what you're saying, Vince.
You know, how about all of you women who had children? It's, getting pregnant is fun. Like, I think we can all agree that doing the hard work of getting pregnant is a lot of fun, but all of a sudden, body starts to change, morning sickness shows up, all sorts of experiences like weird obsessions between pickles and Nutella, heartburn. I remember my wife just really struggled with the heartburn. And then, of course, labor. Isn't labor fun? I mean, golfing or labor, which one would we rather do? And no, let's just go push a watermelon out of our body. And that's because that's fun. And there's a tremendous amount of suck. But, and by the way, now we got to raise this little human, keep it alive. How many nightmares did we have as parents? You know, am I doing everything well? You know, am I screwing this kid up or not? Like, you know, so there's always suck in life. Life is never absent of suck. It will never be absent of suck. So stop wishing for it and just get on with it already.
You remind me of my parents. Just suck it up. Just suck it up.
Well, suck it up is different.
Us what that looks like.
So just for clarification, you know, just suck it up. That's different than embrace the suck. Suck it up is like, it can feel a little bit degrading. It can feel a little bit disingenuous. It can feel a little bit dehumanizing. If it's absent of empathy, it's absent of compassion. You know, I've got this big blister and we're only 35 kilometers into this 50-kilometer march, and someone just suck it up. Well, hey, versus, you know what? Been there, done that. Here's some duct tape. Let's fix those up so we can get you back in the lineup. So
that's really good. I like that. I like the differentiation of those.
Yeah.
What did embrace the suck look like in uncertainty in Somalia?
Routine. You know, going from Canada to Somalia, to a country in the midst of a civil war, we had this warrant officer. He was incredible at managing our routine and our structure. And, you know, for the majority of the tour, I was deployed down near this airfield, and we were responsible for all the security at the airfield so relief aircraft could come in. And then the different agencies would come in, like the Red Cross, for example. They would come in and they'd take the relief supplies that were flown in. So every day started with some sort of routine. And for, you know, this is my mind. The very first thing we do is we wake up, we grab our weapon. Weapon is always with us at all times. It's just it's by my cot. And we do a big giant area sweep. And typical Canadian military is we want to live in a clean house. So make your bed and let's do an area sweep, pick up all the garbage, different things like this. Check all the barbed wire defenses, make sure they're in place. All this sort of important tactical things. We just like a little security check, making sure everything's there. But then once that's done, we start getting into our own individual station jobs. So some people would be in charge of making sure the shower point is clean and draining properly because you don't want still water. Some people would be responsible for making sure daily rations were handed out. There was a bunch of different tasks. Some of these tasks took a long time. Cleaning the shower point was about a half an hour task for 2 men. And my mind was the latrine needs to get cleaned out, and that's only a 10-minute task. So I chose the latrine. So if you can imagine an outhouse, only underneath the seat is a big 45-gallon drum cut in half, and that's where it catches all the business. So my job is to pull that out very gently. We don't want any splatter. Pull that out, dump a jerry can of diesel into it, grab my stick, light it on fire, put it in the bin, and stir the business, as we would say. And everyone would be like, "Oh, that's gross." And I'd like, you know what? My task is 10 minutes. Yours is a half an hour. Who's winning?
Who's winning?
Who's the first one going to breakfast? I am.
I really want to just reiterate what you've just said, because these are really good. Number one, waking up. I think some
Yes.
people are just feeling a real loss of purpose right now. Even those who are working, it's like, why get up? I have no boss looking over my shoulder. My business, I have no motivation. But I love how you said get up, and I loved how you said, what's your weapon? Now, I don't have I don't know, guns, whatever gun you had, but
So today's weapon's a pen, right? Or a keyboard. But yeah, back for then it was a rifle.
Rifle. What is your weapon? What is it that's going to protect and carry you? And I loved how you mentioned the role. What's your role? Getting something, giving your kids a role, giving your team, making sure everyone feels purposeful in something. This is really, really good.
You know, in the first week of the quarantine, it was really fun to kind of hang out in pajamas or, you know, Lulu bottoms and a t-shirt. But eventually we've got to come back to center. So back then, even in Somalia, we were up at 6 a.m. It didn't matter. And by the way, every day and every night, we always did a patrol. Patrol would be about 2 hours plus the prep time before and after. So there's no such thing as a full night's sleep. There has never been a full night's sleep in those 6 months. But it didn't matter when your patrol finished. You still had to be up and at it by 6 o'clock. All of our normal morning routine still had to happen. So some guys like to shower in the morning. Some guys like to shower at night. Whatever that routine is, keep it. And then it's breakfast with your buddies, breakfast with your pals, and shooting the shit. And then we just had normal jobs throughout the day, apart from our daily patrol. So we were constantly building and reinforcing our barbed wire defensive around our position. And that's the same thing today. It doesn't matter what you do for a living, or it doesn't even matter if someone was working domestically at home either. Just that morning routine, that it's like a bookend. It keeps everything from, you know, falling over. So if we can bookend the beginning of our day and the end of our day, we're far better off than just winging it. It doesn't matter. Even Commander Hadfield, when he was at the International Space Station, talks about the value of routine. Routine really kind of sets the day. And then whatever happens in between those two bookends, that's demand. So for me, it's client calls and working with partners and different things like this. But whatever that routine is, it's incredibly important to create some stability, just psychological stability.
I like that. This is so good. Everyone, are you getting something out of this? Your morning and your evening routine, so important. Make sure you keep it. It does more than you know. Bill, I like what he says here. Between here and there, it's going to be suck. I like this. When these uncertain times and you're going to come out bitter or better. Embrace the suck and focus on the better lens in life. I mean, yeah, that's what we can control, right?
Yeah. Can you just back that up though? It's focusing on what we can control.
Yes.
Here's an example. When we arrived in Somalia, we arrived with no maps. So imagine just going on a holiday, but you have no access to a map. You have no idea. You just know you got it in an airport. So how do we get to the hotel, right? We had no redeployment date. We had no idea when we were going home. And we left on December 18th. So to not know when we were going to return home was incredibly unsettling. There was rumors from 3 months to 1 year, and neither idea was comforting. And the brain just doesn't like uncomfortables. Like, we don't like to be uncomfortable. So that was a bit of a self-inflicted wound on the Army's part. And the third, another example was just we didn't have radio communications for every man. The United States did, the American Army did, but we had four per platoon, which is 35 people. The American, and that little radio set weighed 35 pounds, including 2 spare batteries, where the Americans had this little 4-pound lithium battery, change it every 4 days. So to navigate, we literally had to go pen and paper and look around, use our compass. Is this street running north or south, east, west? What's it doing? And we had to build our very own map of the town we were responsible to provide security in. So for a lot of us, what's the map look like? What's your daily map? You might have to literally get out a pen and paper and sketch it out, you know, from your morning routine to a bunch of different things that you could normally do in normal times. But until we know otherwise, this is the new normal until we know otherwise.
And what you've just said, I think is so, like you said, you didn't know when you were coming home. We don't know when we're leaving home.
No.
And I like what you said about using what you had. You had a compass, you had a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Many of us are normal. The ground has been removed from us and we're thinking, well, now what? Well, we always have something. There's something in our hands. There's something we can see. I like how you've brought that up. You remind us that we always have something that we can navigate with. There's always ways. There's always a way.
There really is. There's a research study done in the 60s. If you can imagine a cage, 2 cages, a dog in each cage, and there would be an electrical shock from the bottom up. And the shock would repeat itself every, 7 or 10 seconds. But it was the shocks were repeated for 75 times. And so how did these dogs behave? In one cage, it was just a cage and a pressure plate and an electrical shock. In the other cage, there was a pressure plate along the wall that the dog could just press his nose up against and the shock would end. So one was in control of the shock, not that the one had zero control and the other one had control of how long the shock would last. Experiment 2, same dogs, but now they're in a pen and the shocks begin again. The dog that grew up in those 75 repeated shocks with no ability to control anything remained in the pen continually, just anxious, stressed, and pee, right? Just pee itself. Whereas the other one who could control the shock realized not only can I control the length of the shock, I can jump out of this thing. And that's when they learned the difference between learned helplessness and learned optimism. And all around us, we're seeing examples of people, and we can see it in their language, we can see it in their behavior. Some people, there's this, it's called post-traumatic growth versus post-traumatic stress. I don't like using the word disorder because a good friend of mine said it's a response. Anxiety, depression, these are a response to stress. They're a response to anxiety. So another story, but that's exactly what we see in people right now. There's people that are smiling, and they're finding ways to win. They're grabbing their pen and their paper and they're drawing out their map. And there's other people that are just laying down, sadly, feeling completely out of control, and they're hurting. So if we can see that, can we reach out to them and let them know, hey, here's what you can control. You can control your morning. You can control your routine. You can control your nutrition. You can control your exercise. You can control your ability to reach out and communicate with friends, whether it's FaceTime or, sitting 6 feet away from each other in the front lawn.
That's really good. That's really good, Vince. And I just want to follow up on that because when you think about the difference, between the event and the response, there is always this idea of, and I love changing the language from a disorder, because if it's a disorder, well, hey, something's wrong with me.
Right.
But what if it's not about me? What if it's about how I respond? And so maybe speak to that a little bit.
Sure. I have the privilege of visiting a psychologist every week, and it started in November. There's lots of reasons for that, but it's been a really incredible journey. And one of the things she told me was that all emotions are normal, all feelings are normal, all behavior is explainable. It's the response to that. I was first diagnosed with ADHD when I was 12, re-diagnosed at 40. I'm 50 now. And most recently, I tripped over a YouTube channel called How to ADHD. I've been learning a ton in there. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is it's a learning difference, not a learning disorder. I'm sure that upsets the medical community, but for me, I identified this is a learning difference. I learn differently than the next person. So what do I do to amplify and support my learning? Versus just look for all the reasons why I'm stupid. You know, I mean, which path do I want to walk down? And I choose to amplify all the ways that help me learn differently than others. It's the same thing in COVID right now. It's our response to that. How do we make sense of this so that we can move forward?
Yes. Yeah. Limitations. We are so quick to love limitations. Kayla here says the medical community, she says she absolutely agrees with the term learning difference. So there you go, Vince. And that's
Thanks,
from
Kayla.
Kayla Walsh from the medical community. And it's so true. You know, we're so quick to limit. We're so quick to go to fear. It's just a real easy default. And sometimes we're so close to our own lives. We're in it. And so we often need someone like you, a webinar, a friend who's outside of us to remind us, because we all know this. What's really funny is that everybody's probably heard the word routine many times in the last 4 weeks or in the last 10 years. But right now, just to hear it again, it's like, yeah, tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up. Tonight, I'm going to have a routine. I'm going to do the next right thing. That's what I'm going to do because Vince reminded me that this is important. This is why we need these things. This is why we have to lean into one another right now. So good.
There's an author. His name's Trevor Mawwood. We can share the information after the call. But he talks about in the past, there was only negative and positive thinking. If you weren't thinking positive, then by default, you must be thinking negatively. And if we think of, here's a question for all of us, and Abe and Connie, we can role play this. So Abe and Connie, for the purpose of the exercise, you're married, you're in quarantine, marriage is getting frayed, kids are going around the place with their head cut off, one of you's lost your job. And so you're like, and then someone comes along and says, just be positive, Connie, just be positive, Abe. And you're like, what, your whole world's burning down around you. What's your immediate response when someone says, just be positive?
I have a finger in mind.
And I wonder what finger that might be. Abe, what about you? Just be positive, Abe.
Yeah, I think, that's the problem. You get the opposite response, wouldn't you? Right?
We do.
Yeah.
And so Trevor Mawwood, he would say, when we're going backwards into the negative, we can't just drop the transmission into forward or we're going to blow the transmission. And conversely, for going forward, we just can't drop it into reverse or we're going to blow the tranny. So he says, but we can put the vehicle in neutral. So what's the truth? And neutral is the truth. We can look at all the data and recognize that this is the truth. The truth is, here's the rates of infection. Here's the rates of recovery. Here's the rates of death. Here's all the truth around this. Okay. But don't just, like Trevor would say, don't say stupid shit out loud. None of us can prevent negative thought. It shows up. It's just, we're hardwired to think negative things. However, when a positive thought is said, you know what, I'm going to exercise today. Well, now, and I'm going to eat nutritious meal today, and I'm going to drink 3 cups of water. Because I've said that positive thing out loud, that messaging is amplified 10 times more. I'm 10 times more likely to do what I just said because I talked about it. I choose to be happy today. Conversely, when we say negative things out loud, it amplifies 4 to 7 times more than. In other words, negative thought, while positive thinking doesn't always work, negative language always does, and it works negatively, and it's amplified I think his data is 4 to 7 times more. In other words, 40 to 70 times more likely that you're going to have a shitty day. And in the military, we call that a self-inflicted wound. So don't say stupid shit out loud. Yes, you can acknowledge the truth. You can look at the facts. But don't argue like, today's weather sucks. You're predisposed to have a shitty day if the first thing out of my mouth is the weather sucks. Does that make sense?
Words are powerful. That makes total sense.
So yes, routine's important. Build routines to support positive language. Build routines around the facts, the truth. My routine is built around that I can't go to the gym. That's the truth. That's the fact. But I can still go for a walk around the pond.
So, what do you say then? And I love what you're saying. Like it's pretty tough to have a positive life with a negative mind, and it's pretty tough to have uh, not to have a negative mind if you're filling it with negativity, right? I mean, it just makes sense. And so, what's your thoughts about, like, the current state of the media today? And I love folks who, on the one hand, will say, I'm really committed to my mental health. And I wonder why I've got all these levels of stress. On the other hand, they're tuning into CNN 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And I love how you're framing it, because it's not burying my head in the sand, but regular diet of negativity will only lead to something. So tell us about that.
I mean, it's super obvious. If I just drank scotch, which is over my shoulder, and that's all I drank all day, it's clear that A, I'm going to get drunk, and B, if I don't stop, worse outcomes are going to happen. So what goes in the mind is just as powerful as what goes in the body. To use fast food, and I know there's very nutritious solutions to fast food. There's nutritious fast food, but let's just pretend that fast food by definition is not good for us. We'll just say McDonald's. If I had a diet of McDonald's every day, the same thing for media. If I consume the media all day, 3 days, 3 meals a day, the same way I would consume McDonald's 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, it makes sense that my brain is going to amplify all these fear stories that come out of the media. So again, I'm not saying anybody don't watch the news. Just limit, whether it's online or offline, just limit the information you need. What do you need to make the next step forward? In athletics, when I coach my athletes, we're losing, let's just say it's 20-5 is the score. It's a rugby game. And, we've got 35 minutes left in the second half. We know that, so it's 20-5, it's a point spread of 15. And if we score the right goal, we can be tied up easily in 2 tries with a conversion, basically. Well, if we focus on the outcome, we're going to stress out. We just will. It's kind of like the driver losing control and goes on off the ditch and hits the telephone pole. The RCMP says, "Why'd you hit the pole?" "Well, I didn't want to hit the pole. I didn't want to hit the pole." But that's what they hit. If we just focus on the outcome, we're gonna get what we get. So just play the next whistle. Play whistle to whistle. The past is the past. Just play to the next whistle. Trevor Mawid, I wrote it down on a sticky note on my computer. He just says, focus on the next behavior as opposed to the outcome. Besides, don't even control the outcome. So what's the next best behavior right now? What am I in control of now? My nutrition, my exercise, my thinking, I can call someone. The options are limitless. Yes.
I think we underestimate the power of what goes on inside of us in these moments. When you're in Somalia, what kind of character is being developed, what kind of foundations we're building in our lives. And what you're talking about is how to build, what we do control is what we build inside of us in these times. And that we can't control what's going on the outside, but how are you going to, I think Lauryn Hill, how are you going to win if you ain't right within, and focusing on those behaviors, the next pass to the next pass, really thinking about that. If we come out stronger in character, we win, because it's those who have character. If the ground is taken out from underneath them, they're not moved. But when our trust is in the media, in money, in our jobs, in our stuff, I mean, we're really seeing how unwise it is to trust in things like that right now.
There's a couple things there. I noticed Abe put up, the amount of words in our head, and I've heard a lot of this data, and he's not wrong. Like, the research is showing 400 to 1,000 words a minute is how fast we talk to ourselves. So if someone were to follow us out loud, right? Like, okay, I've got a twin, little android, and it was to constantly verbalize all the BS in my brain. At what point do I turn that android off? Like, none of us would allow anybody to walk around us 24/7 verbalizing all the negativity that exists out there. So coming back to I'm not naive to the challenges that exist. The difference is between my headspace and the next person is I'm just playing whistle to whistle, focusing on what I can control. I know what refuels me. I know what, I made a comment the other day, nutrition refuels me, exercise rejuvenates me, and sleep resets me. In Somalia, we had to do a patrol every night. So it was totally okay to get a nap in. If you got a nap somewhere else in your day, no one cared. You had to take care of yourself. So it was self-care, weapon care, platoon weapon care, vehicles, those sorts of things were all priorities. If I were to say, oh, I can't go out tonight, I'm tired, pardon? Like, again, that's a self-inflicted wound. If I don't show up for my patrol ready and able to support my teammates, I'm letting them down. And by not having a nap, that's a self-inflicted wound. So what does remember, this is our new normal. You don't need permission to take a nap. You don't need permission to go walk around the block. You don't need permission to not shave. Like, I just, right? Some things I let go of, other things I amplified.
Cynthia's asking, can you repeat your what you said about nutrition? Nutrition nourishes me.
Right. Nutrition refuels me. Exercise rejuvenates me. And sleep resets me. You could also say the same, that exercise, there's a really good reset with exercise. It's the best antidepressant activity in the world. So much so that if scientists could put the chemical triggers in a pill that would give us the same effects as exercise, they would have done it already. Nothing's better than exercise when it comes to managing anxiety and stressful thinking. And so in the military, it was easy. Exercise was built into our job, right? So like me sitting at my desk all day, yes, I'm making calls. Yes, I'm talking to people. Yes, I'm helping others solve challenges and reframe things. But if I don't take a break, if I don't walk around that block, I become a physical casualty in my own unit, which is my wife, my kids, me. Like, we're a four-man team here. And I have to play a part. I have to do my part in staying healthy. It's an obligation.
That's it.
Right. So just a couple minutes left, Vince, in the middle of this COVID-19, and people are, understandably under a lot of stress. What would be one or two things that you could give them, pieces of advice, to kind of get through this, appreciating, the situation that we're in?
As simple as it sounds, simple gets done. First of all, let's be super clear. The complicated things in life are not getting done right now. So how do we keep it simple? The only way a brewery can pivot from making beer to making hand sanitizer is they kept it simple. The entire assembly line's the same. All they did was change the ingredients. So in your life, what can you keep the same in your routine, but just change up the ingredient, right? Again, exercise was a part of my daily routine. Instead of the gym, now we go for a walk. I could do push-ups or jumping jacks, or I can do all these little things, but what works for you. So keep the system in place, protect the system, just change the ingredients so that you get the desired outcome that you can control. The other thing is coming back to the embrace this suck. The very end of my military infantry training, we have what's called an E&E, escape and evasion exercise. So they drop us off at, it was, 7:00 at night. It was dark. And they said, you have to get from here on the map to here. And it was about 15 kilometers. And we had to arrive by 6 a.m. So if you get caught, you're going to get worked over like you're a prisoner of war. So me and my buddies, we did all that we could. And guess what? We arrived at 5. We slept for an hour, and the truck came to pick us up, and we were all excited. Yes, we did it. We avoided any enemy contact. We were so excited until the truck pulled over and the enemy just pulled us out of the truck like a can of fish. And for the next day, they totally worked us over like we were a POW being processed. It sucked. And I was so excited that I was one day closer to being a professional soldier. Like, we were literally a week away from our graduation parade. And all I could think about was graduation parade. You want to put a pressure point on me, make my nose bleed, put your finger behind my ear and make my jaw click a little bit. You know, you can't hurt me bad enough to make me quit. There is nothing that's going to stop me. COVID will end. We might not know the exact day, and that's all right. It will end. The suck is just part of the journey. Out of suck, think of it. Well, all of us think about this. Suck is the birthplace of innovation. Suck is the birthplace of creativity. It's the birthplace of really strong, connected, meaningful relationships. Paul Powers is a guy we chat a couple times, 2-3 times a year. We were in Somalia together, best friends for the last 25, 27 years, all because we experienced Somalia together. And he's one of many guys I stay in touch with. And we ramble on like it was just yesterday, and we never remember the pain. We always remember the good, funny laughs. So this idea of this will pass is true. If you got to believe in yourself that it will get better. Suck is just part of it. There's some really cool ideas that's going to come out of this. Just got to look.
Just got to look. I hope you all are just getting so much. Vince, Cynthia was just saying that tears welled up for her. I felt it too. When you said suck is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, connected and meaningful relationships, I got goosebumps. So good. I hope that everyone is just feeling encouraged and equipped to go from this webinar when we're done, to embrace the suck, because it's doing something.
10 years ago, our son was in cardiac arrest at the Children's Hospital. We still are connected to a lot of the different healthcare staff who helped us through those really, really uncertain times. My son's 10. It's horrific to watch your own child in cardiac arrest. And those relationships we established 10 years ago continue, and we can reach out to them and they can reach out to us. 10 years from now, the relationships we're creating now are going to, that's what we're building. It's the foundation of so many great things. But back to those 2 dogs in the pen, one jumped out and the other one just laid there. It failed to look around. It failed to see that, hey, I can jump out of this pen. And so when we see people like that, reach out to them. And it's not a time for judgment. It's just, hey, I'm here for you. What's going on? How can I help? It's, exercise empathy and compassion, and help them just focus on the facts, not the amplified negativity.
That's so good, Vince. Honestly, so much value for so many people, and thank you for sharing it. Some hard truths, but with a lot of empathy and a lot of care. And we're grateful, folks, all of you who have joined us. We're going to be posting this and sending out, the recording of this webinar. Any final thoughts, Vince, just to the audience here today?
I don't know, after all that, I don't have all the answers. No one does. Google Adaptive Challenge, lead with your values, and hold space for those people around you. I have a strong network of friends that I reach out to daily to stay centered, to stay grounded. Here's what I'll leave you with. 1 is too small of a number to achieve greatness. It's too small of a number to inspire movement, and it's too small of a number to move a piano. So what makes you think you can get through COVID on your own?
Love it. So good. Thank you. Thank you, Vince. Thank you so much. And, folks, honestly, we, Connie and I and Wellness Innovate, we've been doing this because for exactly moments like this, right? You are not alone in COVID-19. And though we're all respecting physical distancing, through webinars like this and other ways of connection, we have an opportunity to make a choice, right? To stay connected and to draw strength from each other. I don't know about you, but I just got stronger, listening to Vince talk here today. And, there's a couple of things that we do want to share as we bring this to a close. They are saying that this could be the perfect storm for depression, anxiety, and suicide. The IMF yesterday, did a international news story that, this could be the worst economic depression literally in the last 100 years, which is quite scary because we actually know from the data that when economic numbers go down, depression goes up, suicide goes up, domestic violence goes up, addiction goes up. And so this is not, a good situation to be in. But it's also the perfect storm for the idea of social isolation and workplaces actually deteriorating. And so, I think one of the big challenges today, and it's interesting to me how people's sense of safety has been removed in the middle of this crisis, right? We just don't feel safe. I mean, people hardly feel safe to go outside and take a walk, let alone reintegrate with society. And so, I think in the midst of all of that adversity, and we've heard this from Vince many times today, opportunity is everywhere, right? And when I say that, I don't mean in a crass, let's go sell toilet paper for $50 kind of way. I'm talking about the opportunity to change, to evolve, to adapt, to grow, and to use this situation to become something and someone greater than you are today. And, at Wellness Innovate, honestly, we do have the tools to help you not only manage the mayhem, but to thrive through it and to rise strong. And so, what does that look like? Well, you might be watching this video wondering, what does that look like for me? I think first, it looks like conversations just like this with Vince. I mean, so much value in just hearing each other, understanding each other, listening to each other. But I think secondly, coaching, right? And some of you may need a coach, and it might be time for you to reach out and get some support. I think it can also look like more webinars like this and jumping on, and for some of you, a deeper dive of training. And so really, we just want to open it up to you. There's many of you who have an opportunity potentially to bring us into your organization. This is not a profit-making thing. We're very happy to do this free of charge, because right now it's all hands on deck, and how can we find a way to support each other through it. And on your screen right now are several of the topics that we've been working on with business owners and entrepreneurs and organizations, so that we can get through these tough times with some strength and some integrity and wholeness, right? We just yesterday did a presentation on 10 science-based strategies for building resilience. And Vince, you touched on easily 4 or 5 of them here today. So thank you for that. And, honestly, if you have any interest in that, just encourage you to reach out. Connie's email is there for the whole planet to see. How crazy is that, eh, Connie? Connie's got a pretty easy email, though, Connie@wellnessinnovate.com. And, just reach out to her if you just want to have a conversation about, what it could look like to have us support your organization, just like here today in this webinar. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Connie just to talk about what's going to be happening next week.
Yeah, so we're very excited about the idea of rising strong. So Vince talked about a weapon today. Every morning I have my quiet time, which is my weapon. And in my quiet time, I reflect on what are people saying, what are people feeling, what's going on out there. And I tap in to what could be of help. And the words rise strong came into my mind. And so we're doing a Rise Strong conference next week. And we've brought together some amazing people like Vince. Our city, Calgary, is full and rich with beautiful people. People like Catherine, the president of Shaw Communications, Karen Young, who's really leading in the forefront of the United Way right now, and Tony McGrath has quite the journey with the Grand Theater right now, who he'll share, but he's hit lows before. He's going to share how he got out of those. James McCara, the CEO of the Food Bank, he is leading people so well right now through crisis. And my friend Graham Sherman, who's the founder of Toolshed Beer, the guy he gets knocked down, but he gets up again. He has so many tools for us. And then Gil, from the owner of the Broken Yoke, what a what a soul he is, leading a restaurant through this. And so these are people who we're bringing together who aren't just great speakers. The prerequisite to get on one of our webinars is you're living this, you're in the trenches, and you have valuable tools to share. And I really do believe, and Abe and I believe this with all of our hearts, that right now there's innovation to rise strong. And like Vince said, we have to do this together. No man can be an island right now. And so join us, get your team together, spread the word, come and get encouraged by these people, but also by us leaning in as a community and really buying into the idea that right now, no one left behind. We want everyone to rise strong. So make sure you join us next week. That's it for me.
Thanks, Connie. Thanks, Abe. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Vince. And on that note, folks, we'll make sure you click on the link there and sign up for the conference next week, because though there's no cost, you do have to register for this one. And we're going to be taking, we're not taking, but we're going to be strongly encouraging donations to the food bank, Calgary and area food banks, so they can get through this and with strength as well. So thanks, everybody. And thank you to you, Vince. Much appreciated.
Wouldn't hesitate to do it again. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
You're amazing, Vince. Thank you, everyone.